Fam, let's get going with this section right over here because we are down one section today because Pasta doesn't know how to tweet properly. Let's get it going. So, go ahead.
Okay, so AOC was gloating on Morning Joe to that she was happy that they gave her the credit for holding her tongue against the Democratic Party, right? Because, you know, they were like, you usually have been opposing the Democrats, and you and Bernie decided to hold your tongue. And she's like, yes, thank you so much for the credit. So let's watch this, right? Because this is what she's doing right there. And I want to remind everybody, she initially told you she was going to bring the ruckus, remember, to the Democratic Party. That she was, you know, she was going to oppose this party establishment. And she's done nothing but capitulate at every single turn or create a theatrics of opposition to Biden without actually legislatively or direct action-wise doing anything to oppose him, right? So let's just watch this clip and then we'll go from there.
Let's talk about the Democratic Party. And over the past 3 or 4 months, we've talked a lot about Joe Manchin. We've talked a lot about getting to 50 votes. We've talked a lot about whether it's possible to get to 60 votes. We've talked about the filibuster. I have noticed that you and Bernie and let's just say some of the more high-profile progressive leaders, that you all have held your tongue far more than when I was in Congress.
Thank you for the credit.
and I was on the other side. You know, we would complain every 3 minutes about it doesn't cut enough. We're not getting close enough to balancing the budget. And I'm just, I've been curious. How have you, first of all, have you done it? Because we could never do it. Is there more of a plan to let the moderates work through this, let them try to get to where they go, and then we work behind the scenes and meet them behind the scenes?
I do think that there has been a large amount of behind the scenes work. You know, for example, in the American Rescue Plan, moderates, there were some moderates on the Senate side that wanted to cut stimulus checks, that they wanted to cut the child tax credit, which are checks that are hitting people's, mailboxes right now.
Right.
And so we were using a lot of our leverage because, Manchin's got some of these votes in the Senate, and we've got progressives holding that margin in the House.
Right.
And so, not all of these fights are all public, but I also think that we've got a lot of work ahead of us, too. And so we've got appropriations season coming up, funding and critical agencies that progressives want deep reform in. We've got the defense budget coming up. We've got, DHS coming up. We've got a lot of these different big bills that have from agencies where there's been lots of concerns. And so I think we're pacing ourselves right now because progressives do want to bring down the military budget. We want a $15 minimum wage. We want to make sure that we expand Medicare and that we lower, at bare minimum, lower the age. I would like Medicare for all.
But let's put that in perspective.
Right.
Warmongering Moulton was coming in here.
She had to say, I would like Medicare for all after saying we're going to expand Medicare. It's nice knowing that you would like it. Thank you. That really does a lot for people who can't afford their insulin right now. During what America has called a massive pandemic, right? That has been just unprecedented, that shut down the economy. They didn't give you health care. And now AOC, and she campaigned on this, she wore a mask that said Medicare for all. And now that everything's reopening back up, she's sitting there and saying expand Medicare. She also mentioned how there are things that are going on behind the scenes.
That's important.
This is a consistent go-to
talking point.
Exactly, from the establishment, frankly, when they're like, well, we know we're getting criticized, but you guys don't understand how it is and what goes on behind the scenes. We're fighting. Yeah. We're opposing them behind the scenes. You don't see that, though. Yeah. But it's happening. Trust us.
Yeah. They repeat that narrative at the dinner table.
All the time.
Aunts and moms and whatnot. Well, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They do, and I trust the squad. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly it.
They repeat those narratives.
It's so gross to see even the tone of everything that she's doing. She sounds extremely just one of them, right? And you saw in the beginning, she was laughing. Ha ha ha. Thanks for the credit.
Yeah.
It almost reminded me of Kamala Harris's laugh. It was just so fake. And like the thing is that people are just like, now isn't the time to be passive or the time to just be pragmatic. Now is the time to push for all this shit because people are still feeling the effects of the government shutdown. Because it wasn't the pandemic that really screwed a lot of people. It was the economics of it and the fact that the government didn't provide. And so when that's happening and she's over here, first of all, she's on CNN or on not MSNBC, excuse me. She's on MSNBC. She's
Same
on
thing.
a propagandist network, and she is thanking them for giving her credit for holding her tongue. You should be ashamed that you held your fucking tongue. You were there to bring the fucking ruckus and you didn't do it. And now you're gloating about it. Oh yes, and we're working with them and blah blah blah. And they call these Democrats moderates. They're not moderates, dude. They're right-wingers. They're pretty much the same on the same economic path as a lot of the people on the right. It's just such a shit show, Pasta.
And foreign policy, they're on that same path.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? In this particular situation, I don't even mind saying, okay, the majority of the mentality is definitely a right-wing neocon austerity. Let's make sure the people pay. Global capitalist mentality. And we'll get more into that later, too. But what's really, fascinating to me, fam, is I keep thinking back. We asked that question. They're like, well, what's going to happen? We had the discussion. We get our people in, and then they change.
Right.
But do they change? Or were they meant to be there in the first place?
Right.
Because the language they use is very cryptic. It's very nuanced. It's very specific. Like you talk about, I'd like to expand Medicare, but they also make sure they mention the bad people, the boogie people though too, like Manchin. She had it's Manchin. He's causing the problems. We are behind closed doors. We're doing these things. We want these things. We want these things. So the language is very, very.
It's a carrot.
Yeah, it's very sinister in a way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's very sinister. So it's just one of those things. When I ask myself, did these people change when they got there, or were they meant to be there in the first place?
Yeah.
Because this language kind of signals that they were put there for a reason because they know how to tweak the people on their emotions.
Exactly. And they're dangling a carrot of Medicare for all in front of people. They dangle the $15 minimum wage that should have already passed. They're dangling carrots in front of you without actually passing them. Ilhan Omar was tweeting again. What would it mean for you if we forgave student debt? Like, people are sick and tired of that. The more they do it, the more people are like, okay, I'm done with you guys, because this is all you do is you tweet and you don't do anything legislatively. They have power. I don't. Like, I can't just go and write legislation and say, hey, pass this or do that or start a march like that will effectively create legislation.
Yeah.
All I can do is do this and direct actions, but they have so much more leverage, and she talks about leverage and she's not using it.
Yeah.
And
they give up their leverage all the time.
They give up their leverage all the time.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to point out is that there were some people that were defending Nina Turner, and it's funny to me when those people come after AOC. What do you think is going to be? Do you think it's going to be any different? She's already quitting Obama. She's already refuses to answer about Julian Assange. She hasn't said anything about election integrity at all. Like, she hasn't talked about these. She just regurgitates the same progressive talking points that get all these progressives on board. But do you think she's going to be any different? Why do you think it's going to be any different now? It's the same shit. You have the time to demand is before they're in power, not after. Because look what happened after she got power. Yeah. So it's just
let's look at the ultimate cuck sellout, Bernie Sanders. Wow, it's just really hard to watch this shit, man.
Yeah, so Bernie is part of it, right? They mentioned Bernie too, along with her, how he has been really much tepid on the whole situation. And this is what Bernie Sanders has said on going from outsider to deal maker. It feels very good, he says. And I wanted to play the video, Johnny. No, this one is first. There's two different ones. It's that one. And there's an ad, so I was gonna.
I just want to ask, as I'm listening to you, I mean, you have been, the leader in progressive topics and issues for so long, and now you are the deal maker. How does that feel?
Well, working with the president, it feels good. I think there is a growing understanding that for decades now, we have paid attention to the very rich and the powerful. And I think what most Americans understand is that the time is long overdue. That that we deal with the issues facing the middle class and working families. So it feels very good to be in a position to begin doing that.
Okay.
It's such a crock
It feels
of
good
shit.
to be the Democratic Party sheepdog.
Wow.
That's pretty much what he's saying. I mean, this is like, hello, this is hard to watch. I mean, I've already come to terms with this, but I think some people still haven't, and so that's why I'm showing this, because he's pretty much doing it's the same thing AOC. If I'm going to go after AOC, I'm going to go after Bernie too, because they are both pretty much doing PR for the Democratic Party, for the Joe Biden administration. For the administration, we're going to talk about exactly how fascistic it has been. And it's gross. And then he takes it further, and I know you're going to enjoy this one, Pasta, because this is about the GOP and their voting restriction efforts. He says we can disagree on all kinds of issues, but taking away the right of people to participate in American democracy is unacceptable, and the Congress must address that in every way. However true that is, he only blames the GOP and only one form of voter suppression as the mechanism, when we know very well that isn't the only form of taking people's voices away. You're right, Bernie. People's voices are taken away, but it's not the only reason. Let's watch it.
Let's turn to voting rights. The Senate will vote on Tuesday on a sweeping bill that will almost certainly be blocked by Republicans. Senator Joe Manchin is proposing a narrower plan, which still seems to have a lot in it for Democrats. There are things like a ban on partisan gerrymandering, expanding early voting, restoring key parts of the Voting Rights Act. Stacey Abrams says she could absolutely support this proposal. Do you?
Donna, you said that there seems to be a lot in it for Democrats. That's not the way I look at it.
That Democrats could support.
What we are trying to do is preserve democracy. And what Republican legislatures and governors are doing in the most disgraceful way imaginable is to try to deny people of color, young people, poor people, the right to vote, people with disabilities. That is outrageous. And I really, we can disagree on all kinds of issues, but taking away the right of people to participate in American democracy is unacceptable, and the Congress must address that in any and every way. Also, in my view, we got to deal with dark money in politics, the power of billionaires buying elections. We got to deal with gerrymandering. So I will go as far as we possibly can to create a vibrant democracy in America and take on those Republicans
could that mean,
who are trying to undermine democracy.
Could that mean the Manchin compromise, given the reality of the narrow majority you have?
We're going to do the best. I like what the House passed, H.R. 1. I think that is a serious, comprehensive effort to protect American democracy. We will see what evolves here in the Senate.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders, there was a court case in Florida with the Democratic Party, after we were getting pushed about all the mechanisms in which they were cheating him, said they can go into the back room with cigar smoke and pick whoever they want. He did not respond to that whatsoever. He did not stand up for democracy. It's been obvious for a long time. There was a lot of people who were, I remember the Tulsi-crats, that were this specific issue right here. The fact that he wouldn't challenge to make sure that his election was fair, to make sure that the will of the people's votes stood. Now, as election integrity activists here, we can tell you that his primary was beyond both 2020 and 2016 was just ridiculous. There were reasons to audit, to check, to look. He didn't lift a finger to make sure to do so. Yeah. And now the fact that he's kind of gloating on H.R. 1 when H.R. 1 has money mechanisms in which the two-party duopoly can raise unlimited funds, and yet third parties now are handicapped and pretty much kneecapped for making any money and getting any funds from the government, for campaign finance, and yet he's still standing behind the bill. It's just disgusting to see where Bernie is at. He's been awful on this issue, and really, to tell you the truth, the more he talks about this, the more he just thwarts the will of the people who really supported him for so long. He should give back all the money that he took from everybody, because he's not fighting for their fucking vote, and this right here is disgusting.
Guys, literally, he's only blaming the GOP. Oh, like I have said countless times, the GOP rig elections, but so do the fucking Democrats. Both of them. You know why? Because they're theatrical representations of a non-existent choice. They're an illusion of choice. We live in an oligarchy. We live with corporations. He knows that the billionaires buy this and that. What makes you think, if this country is so corrupt, that somehow our elections are the exception and people like Bernie are expanding the whole narrative that this is just, ooh, the bad right-wingers doing it, when he has been fucked twice by the Democratic establishment. It is just beyond, like angers me and infuriates me seeing him say this now when he didn't fucking fight for the people. We should have been the ones fighting for election integrity at the Capitol. That should have been progressives. Yeah. That shouldn't have been the people on the right. But that now it's a right-wing talking point to say that our election system is unfair and it's rigged. And it's just so enraging.
John Roberts Brakey, a friend of the show, the guy who's out in Arizona and whatnot, he talked about what's going on. He's like, yeah, there was a lot of inaccuracies with this last election. He goes, but believe you me, the primaries, that's when the real steal goes on, because it's only one party being able to cheat without any eyes over them, any oversight whatsoever. And it's specifically, he talked about 2020 and 2016. Guys, I don't understand this mentality out there that somebody said, oh, we'll cheat in the primaries, but we won't cheat in the generals. It's the Republicans that cheat. You already have a Democratic Party who admitted they have the right to go in the back room and do whatever they want.
So by default, the general election's already
cheating.
It's already invalidated, right?
It's ridiculous.
And I just wanted to read this very bottom paragraph, Johnny, at the very bottom, if you scroll
of the Hill
article, because he's propping up this bipartisan proposal that does absolutely nothing, right? This is more on what he was talking about on the State of the Union. He said the bottom line here is that the bipartisan proposal provides spending in some very important areas, roads, bridges, water systems, and that's good. The amount of money that they are proposing is about 1/4 of what the president talked about in terms of new money. That's not adequate. And what we should be also watching carefully is how it's paid for. And he also added that he thinks raising the tax or a gas tax or fees on electric cars in order to pay for the infrastructure plan, as has been tossed around by some lawmakers, is a bad idea. He thinks like it's not adequate enough, but yet he's there saying this is still, we're doing incremental progress here. We don't need that right now. Yeah. We don't need that right now. And this is how far he's come. He has also said in the next article, from Media Light, that the Biden campaign compared to the Clinton campaign made him feel very welcome. And this was, of course, like in contrast to how he felt they tolerated him via the Clinton campaign. And he's like praising the Biden administration for what?
Because Joe Biden is my friend.
But Joe Biden is his friend. And then I'm like, wait a minute. So if Joe Biden's your friend, then what are we? Like, what were we then? What is your friendship with Joe Biden more important than actually you're fighting the system? I guess, because that's all he's showing.
Absolutely,
he said, they asked, can you talk to me about how welcome they made you feel? He said, very welcome. It was a little different than from Hillary Clinton in 2016. He said, yes, it is. You weren't welcomed. He said, I was tolerated. And my support they wanted my support, obviously. So now he's the Senate Budget Committee chair. And didn't we think that was going to be like the greatest thing on earth if he became the Senate Budget Committee chair? They were like, oh, if he does this, then Bernie's just going to fight for us and he's going to do all these things. I understand he's one guy. And I understand that in spite of everything, he is likely still the most progressive senator, which kind of fucking blows your mind. But what is he doing? Where is that Bernie that was like, go after the Democratic establishment? Nope, he's completely just moot now, and it's gross. And I just wanted to show this because both him and AOC are PR narrative managers for the Joe Biden administration, and they shouldn't be.
The way they played off this American Rescue Plan is the thing. It was like, oh, we did everything we could to stop the Republicans from going into your pockets, whatnot. They wanted to give you nothing. They didn't want to expand these things. But behind the scenes, we fought them tooth and nail, and look at what we gave you. So they come to your table with scraps and say, enjoy. This is what we were able to get it. Don't be too greedy. Yeah. This is all we could get, and you should be thankful.
Was it everything we wanted? No, but it was a step forward in the working class.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't,
it was
Bernie.
Shit.
We didn't get fucking shit. We didn't get shit. Yeah. We didn't get shit. And you are over here praising something. Like, it's so gross. And this is the guy, by the way, as we wrap up this segment, that I want that Bernie Sanders is propping up. It's this fucking guy. No, which, yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Clip the mainstream media appears to be suppressing, maybe because it sounds about as racist as it gets from Joe Biden.
This country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
Now, folks.
So I think I saw this earlier, and there was a little context. There was a sentence before he said that. But yeah, it still sounds fucked up.
He's just
when OAN could go, hey man, you look at Biden looking racist and stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
He doesn't know. He did it. This is like deja vu because he's done this before with a whole group of black people.
Yeah,
I think it's the same
organizer.
I think it was the same clip. That's why I was wondering when I saw it, because it looked exactly the same.
Newsmax
from months ago.
Yeah.
But here's the full quote. If we cannot make significant progress on racial equality, this country is doomed. It is doomed not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority. It still doesn't make sense. It's still like Biden speaking.
He's saying like it's a bad thing.
Minority, white, European.
That's what it sounds like. Like it's a bad thing that white Europeans will be in the minority. He sounds like a right winger. It's just kind of funny. Like it's just. Anyway, fam, let's read some super chats.
Was that it for that section over there? All right. So it's settled. Bernie's a cuck sellout. Nothing has changed there. Guys, 51 people watching on the Rokfin. Couple hundred people. How many we got over here on this YouTubes? Almost 200. Guys, get on over.
Get on over.
We're going to have a great interview right now. Roar Media. What time is AOC joining you for her interview on how to propagandize with style and BS?
Oh, real quick.
Love you, fams.
I wanted to show these two graphics, Johnny. I just, if we can, real quick. It was just two graphics. One of them, Biden doubling the... That is the Biden budget boosting ICE funding by 18 million, which we've shown before. Okay, this is Biden. Mm-hmm. And then the next one is Biden budget doubles funding for police hiring program.
Which if that's what if that was part of your policy and your platform and that's what you want to do, but you said the opposite. You literally sold the opposite.
No, the progressives sold the opposite. I don't even remember Biden saying he was going to he stood against defunding the police from the start. He wasn't going to do that.
But he was saying we're going to get more doctors out there and less of this and less of that. Yeah. He was going to say something.
The progressives tried to say, oh, well, we're going to get Biden to stop this fascist overtake that Donald Trump is doing. The kids in cages. What happened to all cops are bastards, progressives? Like, is this what mitigating damage? This sounds to me like he was the Trump was the lesser of evils. And I don't want to say because they're both, they were both atrocious candidates, but at the same time, it's like all this crap we got for telling you that he was going to be just as bad, and he's proving it every single day. And yet we have the narrative managers out there.
Yeah.
I made a comment on this on Instagram. I saw it. I was like, who could have predicted that the guy who wrote the crime bill and top cop from California is going to raise the police budget?
Who could have predicted it?
Who could have predicted it?
I don't know.
Well, Spike Cohen's coming on in a little bit, and he has a little tweet himself about that. So we're all bagging and ragging because it's comedy at this point now. It's comedy, like you really believe this shit. This is what we're mitigating damage from. Too much silence from those progressives who are all, oh, I didn't vote for this. Like, yeah, you did. And we told you this shit was coming, especially the foreign policy, which is just atrocious, worse than fucking Trump. I don't even want to hear it.